Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. Okay, so we agree on the philosophy and the science, but then Monday morning rolls around. You have 32 students in a room designed for 25, a curriculum map that demands you cover the Industrial Revolution by Tuesday, and a budget of $0. How do you make the shift without losing your mind? The biggest fear teachers have about experiential learning is loss of control, and it's a valid fear. If you just toss materials at kids and say, explore, you get anarchy, not learning. This is where the concept of scaffolding is vital. You cannot start with a free-form project. You start with structured inquiry. 1. I do. Teacher models the skill. 2. We do. The class does it together, step by step. 3. You do. Structured. Students do it in groups with a strict checklist. 4. You do open. Students apply the skill to a new problem with autonomy. Many teachers jump straight to step 4 and then wonder why the projects are disasters. You have to build the stamina for autonomy. Students have been trained for years to be passive. You have to retrain them to be active. I don't have time for projects. I have to cover the content. This is the mantra of the American teacher, and it is true if you view the project as the dessert at the end of the meal. The shift requires viewing the project as the meal itself. This is project-based learning, PBL. You don't teach the unit and then do the project. You introduce the project, and the students have to learn the unit to complete the project. This actually saves time in the long run because you stop having to reteach things. When a student learns a concept to solve a problem, they retain it. When they memorize it for a quiz, they flush it from their cache the second they walk out the door, and you have to teach it again 6 weeks later. How do you grade a messy process? A multiple-choice test is easy to grade. A student-built solar oven is hard to grade. We have to move assessment away from just the final product. If we only grade the final bridge, the student will hide their failures. If we grade the engineering journal, where they documented why the first bridge failed and how they fixed it, we are grading the learning. Rubrics need to be specific about process skills, collaboration, iteration, critical thinking. And we need to get comfortable with portfolios. A student should leave school not with a transcript of letters, but with a portfolio of work, code they wrote, articles they published, business plans they drafted. In a traditional learning by listening model, failure is punitive. You take the test, you get a 60, you feel bad, you move on. The failure is the end of the road. In learning by doing, failure is information. It is a stepping stone. When a toddler learns to walk, they fall down. We don't give them an F in walking and tell them to switch to crawling. We cheer. They get up and they adjust their balance. We need to bring that toddler mindset into the high school classroom. This is often called productive struggle. If a task is too easy, it's busy work. If it's too hard, it's frustrating. The Goldilocks zone, or Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, is where the student has to stretch. They have to try, fail, reevaluate, and try again. Teachers often have a rescuer complex. We don't like to see kids struggle. We want to jump in and show them the right answer. But when we do that, we rob them of the learning. The learning happens in the struggle. The teacher's job is to keep the struggle productive, to ask the question that unsticks them, not to give the answer that solves it. We need to have a hard conversation about who gets to learn by doing. Historically, experiential learning has been a privilege. Visit a wealthy suburban private school, and you will see makerspaces, robotics labs, garden programs, and Harkness tables. The education is rich, varied, and active. Visit a strictly underfunded urban school, and you are more likely to see drill and kill. The pressure to raise standardized test scores leads to a narrowed curriculum. Administrators, terrified of state sanctions, double down on test prep. Students sit in rows and practice bubbling answers. This is a civil rights issue. We are creating a two-tiered system where wealthy children are taught to be thinkers and creators, and poor children are taught to be compliant rule followers. Ironically, the students who need experiential learning the most, those who may be disengaged or behind in traditional literacy skills, are the ones least likely to get it. Doing levels the playing field. A student who struggles to read a chapter about electricity might be the best in the class at wiring a circuit board. When they succeed at the wiring, their confidence spikes, and suddenly they are willing to tackle the reading. If we believe in equity, we must fight for the right of every child to have their hands on the materials of learning. We cannot talk about education today without talking about technology. Is staring at a screen doing? It depends. If the student is watching a YouTube video of a chemistry experiment, that is passive. That is TV. But if the student is using a CAD program to design a gear, running a simulation of a traffic pattern, or coding a website, that is absolutely doing. Technology allows us to do things that would be impossible physically. We can't take the class to the surface of Mars, but we can explore it in VR. We can't crash real cars to study physics, but we can crash digital ones. However, we must be wary of the simulation trap. Clicking a mouse to dissect a digital frog is not the same as the tactile experience of a real dissection. The smell, the resistance of the skin, the slipperiness, that sensory data matters. Digital tools should extend our reach, not replace our grip on reality. For 40 years, American education pushed a college for everyone narrative that implicitly looked down on vocational education, CTE. We dismantled woodshops and auto shops to make room for more AP calculus sections. We told a generation of kids that working with your hands was a consolation prize for those who couldn't handle real academics. We were wrong. We are now facing a massive skills gap in the trades. But more importantly, we realized we threw the baby out with the bathwater. Vocational education was the original learning by doing. In a welding class, you cannot fake understanding. The weld holds or it breaks. The feedback is immediate and undeniable. The connection between theory, metallurgy, and practice, the torch, is seamless. We are seeing a renaissance of CTE, but it looks different now. It's not just shop. It's mechatronics, green energy technology, culinary arts, and advanced manufacturing. These courses are often the most intellectually rigorous classes in the building because they demand the synthesis of math, science, and manual skill.